In this episode of Voice of the Sea, we're celebrating the revitalization of ʻamaʻama, the native Hawaiian mullet. Historically, local Hawaiian Fishponds were naturally stocked with baby ʻamaʻama during seasonal migrations known as ʻanae holo. ʻamaʻama traveled in such numbers that the water boiled and mullet could be seen jumping from the shore to the horizon. We start off talking with Dana Hoppe, coordinator of the Wai'anae High School Marine Science Learning Center, where students earn high school credits through hands-on training in aquaculture techniques and skills. The center is getting ready to build a state-of-the-art hatchery for rearing native fishes, which will help provide local with baby mullet.
We are here in Wai'anae, and Wai'anae means ʻanae is the full-grown stage of mullet. And Wai obviously is fresh water, so Wai'anae literally means mullet water. And it's always been my dream that the ʻanae come back to Wai'anae, because when ʻanae were abundant, when I was young, I remember the great movements of the ʻanae. I remember when they were schooling in really large numbers. The ʻanae would move from Pu'uloa or Pearl Harbor through the ahupua'a of the leeward coast and continuing the journey around the island. And you would just see them jumping like crazy in Poka'i. And even at Makaha and even at Keawa'ula, you would see the ʻanae traveling. The ʻanae depend on the connection of fresh water to salt water. When I was young and we had that connection, it was very common to see the baby ʻama, the pua ʻama, swimming in the streams. And you tend to find the pua ʻama in the fresh water, and you find the ʻanae, which is the full-grown stage of the mullet, in the ocean. Wai'anae was not dry like this when I was a teenager. I remember Makaha in particular, there were multiple mulivais. You would swim along the shoreline and you would just feel the upwelling and feel the cold water. Makaha Stream would run almost year-round. And now you'll go 2 or 3 years before Makaha Stream breaks through, because you just haven't had enough rain for that to happen. And I think it's affecting the ʻanae and their ability to spawn on our side, because they need that connection of the salt and the fresh water. So one of the dreams I've always had is that our students would be able to do some work that would help to bring the ʻanae back. We are actually right at the intersection of the Makaha and the Waianae Ahupua'a at the Marine Science Learning Center at Waianae High School. This is our saltwater aquaculture facility where we teach young adults how to become contributing members of their community and how the role of their place and science contributes to that. It prepares them for either marine science major, Hawaiian studies major, or agriculture major. We work with them doing guided inquiries, getting them used to using the scientific method, understanding water quality, how to measure water quality, how to make sure that the species that we raise here are kept healthy and thriving.
Wow, so you're teaching them science, you're teaching them about different careers, pathways in marine science, and then they actually get to experiment with specific species, grow them up, sell them, and really practice the whole cycle of aquaculture.
Yes, they do. That's the beauty of the program, is that what they're doing, especially when they choose their senior project, many times it's solving a production issue that we have. A lot of our protocols now that we follow regularly were developed by students.
Why is this important?
Because Waianae is my home, because I love my community. I want to have more opportunities for our kids. We don't have a lot of jobs out here. We're a very poor community. We have not the best reputation, and I don't understand why, because we have the best kids in the whole wide world. I love our kids. I just really want to make my community a better place.
How do people get involved?
It would be lovely if every community could have a saltwater aquaculture facility, but that's not possible. But I can guarantee you, every single community in all of our islands, there's Mo'olelo, there's Wahipana, there's places that are relevant to your area. Find out what the need is, and that's where you go.
Next, we're at Waikalua, Loko, where the waters of Kava and Kāneʻohe streams once fed this historic Loko with an abundance of fresh water. Herb Lee from the Pacific American Foundation is leading restoration of Waikalua through education, research, and community engagement. What is special about this place?
It's a place that I grew up right up the street over here. I didn't know it existed until I was 40 years old, and it has totally transformed my life. And it's, I think, not only special to me, but very special to this community that helped us to restore it and actually now own it. And more importantly, in the future, hopefully be able to go back to the original intent of why these ponds were built over 400 years ago, and that is to, again, feed our community. We got involved in not only the physical restoration of the pond, but in attracting teachers and students and families that wanted to learn about this and actually discover that they can learn science and mathematics and social studies and language arts in the context of an ancient Hawaiian fish pond or in the context of community. And that was huge for us. And that was transformational for us, me personally, but as I think it was also transformational for our community as well, which, led us to opportunities to engage more people by the thousands over the 28 years and transform this place physically, but also transform us physically, emotionally, spiritually as well, which I think is a pono thing, and we hope to continue it.
And what is your mission or your goal for your organization?
The overall mission of Pacific American Foundation is to improve the lives of Pacific Americans. It's very broad. We focus on cultural stewardship and preservation, innovative education programs that are culturally connected and based, career planning and development, research, and economic empowerment.
What is the kind of thinking that has led you to where you are and to bring a modern and traditional approaches together?
We are the bridge builders of creating these connections between indigenous wisdom and contemporary knowledge and science, because we need all of it to be able to problem solve how we get to becoming more food secure again. Hawaiian Loko are on the verge of vanishing from the landscape, because in the history of Hawaii, there are over 500 of these Loko that were built over 800 years, and 90% of them are gone. At the height of the Loko productivity, they were able to feed thousands, tens of thousands of people. But in the last 200 years, we've seen a tremendous decline. We're so heavily dependent on imports now that we cannot sustain ourselves for the people that live here. And so I believe that the Loko could be the key or a catalyst to be able to inspire people to be more aware of what they are consuming and adopt a mindset of being more of a producer, whether it's food or knowledge or art or music or whatever it is. This is the essence of who we are as Hawaiians, right? ʻāīna, that which nourishes. It's not about this place. It's about understanding the connection to, so we call that aloha ʻāīna, right? How do you, and I believe that if you don't have aloha for a place, why would you Mālama ʻāīna? Because the Mālama ʻāīna part is the hard part, to take care of the ʻāīna, right? And if you have no aloha for it, then, you see how it logically, one has to occur before the other. So if you develop a relationship and you understand what aloha ʻāīna means, then you would want to come back and Mālama ʻāīna, wherever your ʻāīna is. And even on the mainland, right? But take that aloha and, and put it to good use, right? And then the planet will be a better place.
The University of Hawaii's Sea Grant College program focused on Hawaii's coasts and its communities through sustainable development, safe seafood supply, sustainable coastal tourism, hazard resilience, and healthy coastal ecosystems. Hawaii's Sea Grant.
You're watching Voice of the Sea. We're at Waikalua, Loko with aquaculture expert Kai Fox, learning about work to increase food production using modern aquaculture and traditional practices. Can you tell me a little bit about where we are?
We are at Waikalua Loko Fish Pond. This is the south portion of Kāneʻohe Bay. This fish pond is privately owned by the Pacific American Foundation, and Hawaii Sea Grant has had a long partnership with Pacific American Foundation, decades now. I work for Hawaii Sea Grant as an aquaculture extension specialist.
What is aquaculture?
Aquaculture is, generally speaking, it's growing aquatic organisms usually in a controlled environment. The cool thing, again, about this project is we have a traditional host Hawaiian culture created this Loko ia, which is aquaculture. What we're trying to do here is incorporate a little bit of modern aquaculture into the efforts that are ongoing with the fish pond to try to complement each other.
Can you describe for me some of the modern technologies that you're using?
Modern aquaculture generally is using metals, plastics, electricity, that kind of stuff. You can kind of date modern aquaculture to maybe right after World War II. We started developing commercial feed. We developed drugs that can be used to induce spawning in fish. So that's kind of the beginning of modern aquaculture. We're using high-density polyethylene tanks. These are food grade. They'll last hopefully a really long time in the sun. We have a really fancy aquaculture pump, very energy efficient. We're pumping the water out of the pond through the tanks. And then we have a regenerative blower to provide air and air lift for a lot of the things that we do. The primary fish that were raised in a lot of these Loko ia are in very low abundance and even lower in the wild, and then even usually lower abundance in the Loko ia, unfortunately. And the two main species we're talking about are mullet, ʻama, and milkfish, ava. And so for this project, we're focusing on ʻama. What we did here was create sort of a nursery for pua, hatcheries pua, to come and land, and we can use the Loko ia water to fill up our tanks, and so that the fish have a sort of protected environment where they can grow to a acceptable size, getting the fish big enough so that they have good chance of surviving, right? That's basically what that means. So there's a lot of challenges for baby fish that are very small, that live their whole life in a tank, coming directly into a fish pond. We can control things in the tanks that we can't control in the Loko, right? So we can control somewhat temperature, we can control light, control the feed, which I think is probably a very important part of this story that we can't really answer definitively either, but anecdotally seems to be working, is, you know, getting the gut ready, transitioning from the commercial pellet situation to being able to eat whatever's in the wild, right? We're feeding pellets. There's extra nutrients in that pellet water, right? The fish consume maybe a quarter of the nitrogen that is in the pellet. The rest is sort of waste. So that actually fertilizes the water in the tank and causes the limu to grow, and then they eat the limu. Kind of a turf, mat, sometimes LA, grows along the side of the tank. So what we see is eventually, once you have a pretty solid limu mat going, they prefer not to eat the pellets. They start to eat the limu primarily. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. So that worked out. Are we feeding them exactly what they will be eating in the wild? I don't know. But it certainly is limu, and it's limu from this area that just spontaneously is growing in our tanks. What we're trying to do is we're trying to do integrated multi-trophic aquaculture here. So, you know, the fish and the limu is sort of the first step of that. We actually use manila clams that we collect from the fish pond. They're actually naturalized in Kāneʻohe Bay. We collect manila clams, put them in oyster baskets, and then when we see water quality starting to deteriorate, we float the clams in for a day or two, and they just take out all the... Yeah, definitely there's room for sea cucumbers, because there's still some solid waste that comes out of the system, and that's perfect for sea cucumbers, but probably not a lot of sea cucumbers. It's more of using the animals in like an ecosystem approach. There's over 10,000 jobs right now in algae technician level open right now in the country.
Wait. There's 10,000 algae technician jobs open in the United States.
And they're averaging about $60K per year entry level. This is no college degree. This is just 2 years of algae technician. It's a booming industry right now.
Next, we're at the Oceanic Institute in Waimanalo, talking to Kupu intern and hatchery technician Alex Totman-Rodrigues, who graduated from the Marine Science Learning Center at Wai'anae High School.
So right now we're in Oceanic Institute, the hatchery they have over here. Our main focus up here is when they have eggs, we're going to stock them in a tank and then see if we can grow them out.
So tell me about the different kinds of species that you're growing here in the hatchery.
The species that we have right now are clownfish, Hawaiian cleaner rasp, the blue cleaner rasp, yellow tang, blue tang. Those are kind of the main ones that we have right now. My main job over here is dealing with the Artemia, the fish tanks that we have, and the rotifers. The rotifers are one of the foods that we have for when they start day 3, as well as the Artemia for when they're day 10. So I just basically make sure we have enough of those throughout the whole day, and then just feeding out dry foods, cleaning tanks. So a typical day, in the morning we come in, we check on all the fish, making sure they're all alive, no dead morts or anything like that. So that's a good side when we see everybody just swimming around, eating, enjoying themselves, and then kind of just cleaning the tanks and making sure they have food for the day.
Is there anything about working at the hatchery that surprised you or is different than you thought it would be?
At first, I was kind of worried because everything overwhelmed me because it's there's a lot of numbers and everything. But after a while, I got used to it and I felt like, okay, now that I have the hang of it, routine, it's a lot easier. Just being able to see the fish grow from an egg to a fingerling size is something else that you couldn't expect. Just being able to be like, oh yes, I grew that fish.
Why is it important to be growing these different native species?
I feel like it's super important just to be able to bring them back for the ecosystem. We've lost so many due to overfishing and stuff like that. But if we're bringing them back over, maybe increase the population, help the ocean with coral reefs and stuff like that, and just being able to have them kind of spawn on their own in the future, and then just bring back the abundance that we used to have. And maybe show students the importance of being able to give back what you take from the island. What drew me to the career was being in the Marine Science Learning Center, is being able to learn about all the fish and aquaponics we do over there. And then from me getting older and being able to see, oh, I really enjoy this. A big part was the fish, but being inside the Marine Science Learning Center, we also learned the science part of it. Through working here at Oceanic Institute, they taught me how to do the cumulations for the mullet and everything, as well as how they count the rotifers, the Artemia, the process of how to take data through the fish when they're growing, as well as feeds, as well as the math they do over here versus what I learned at the Wai'anae High School. The Oceanic Institute, they taught me a lot.
Do you have advice for students who might be interested in a similar career?
My really big advice is when I was in the Learning Center, I never used to get my hands dirty. Through the Learning Center, I felt like since we go to coddle patches and we get in the mud and everything, I feel like do not be afraid to get dirty. That's a big thing. As well as if you really do start enjoying it, kind of ask the teachers and everything to help out career paths and stuff like that, or any suggestions they might have as well. The big thing is kind of just being hands-on, don't be afraid to mess around in the mud.
We are looking for a few heroes, mentors, trailblazers, innovators, a passion to change lives, spark curiosity, open hearts, and awaken minds, help students answer the question, who am I? This could be your calling, but this is no job. It's the journey of a lifetime. Be a hero. Be a teacher.
You're watching Voice of the Sea. We're at Kealohi in Kāneʻohe, talking with Hui Mālama Lokoʻia coordinator Brenda Asuncion.
This is the edge of the He'eia Ahupua'a. And then we can see He'eia Lokoʻia is right here also. I work for an organization called Kua'aina Ulu Awamo, or we say Kua for short, Kua meaning backbone. We serve as a backbone organization for various networks across Hawaii. One of them is the Hui Mālama Lokoʻia, so that's a network of Loko organizations and stewards and ohana, just caretakers of fish ponds on all of the different islands. Loko are huge contributors to the outside fishery, not just in a sense of like they're accumulating nutrients from the mauka areas and they're amplifying the estuary, but that the act of caring for these areas to cultivate food also, and maybe more than the food we're actually cultivating, contributes to our outer fisheries. Why is it so important that we feed resources and energy into these places? It's because they can amplify all that energy and resources out even further to the waters around Loko. The ultimate vision would be for the system to be running itself again. This idea that our wild fisheries are healthy enough that ponds are passively stocked just by the behavior of pua recruiting to the estuary areas. But that takes, a protected, healthy estuary area, which is its own, bundle of issues. Fresh water is a huge issue in a lot of our islands and in many communities, and many specific Loko say that their availability of fresh water isn't enough. But I think the question is, what is the viability of technologies like fish hatcheries to help support a system that has been degraded for so many generations?
How can people get involved?
If you can identify Loko in your community, there are almost 500 identified across our islands. So it's likely that there's one in your area that folks could volunteer at or, donate to, or help make connections with other partners that are in the area around the Loko, because it's really the building of the connections around Loko, I think also that help to raise them up. They're just at this amazing nexus of the land and ocean, and it's really a rich, productive area, productive space, but also I think impacted from all directions as well. Many people who have worked in Loko feel like they are places that enrich us as people, even as we work towards an idea of feeding in a physical way. Many of us have experienced ways that they feed people intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. Many people that have spent enough time at Loko feel like their lives are enriched, or their sense of who they are is enriched in a certain way, and they're talked about as places of cultivation. And I think the placement of that in a marine environment that we aren't raised typically thinking of as gardens or farms. So it's a really captivating juxtaposition of tending to and caring for a place that is still wild.
You can get involved. Find a Loko ia or other vahipana to Mālama in your community. Go to voiceofthesea.org to learn more. Follow us on social media at Voice of the Sea TV. Mahalo for watching Voice of the Sea. Exploring Our Fluid Earth is the dynamic curriculum developed by the University of Hawaii's Curriculum Research and Development Group. The award-winning Fluid Earth and Living Ocean textbooks are now interactive and online. New activities, updated content, and a teacher community. Exploring Our Fluid Earth is now freely available. Find out more at exploringourfluidearth.org.